winning at home and at work. I think it's a very important topic, and I'm super excited for this episode because I have my better half, my superpower back. Haven't had her on the podcast this year actually. Vona,
Hey,
welcome back.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
You set boundaries and you decided, look, you have to focus on life, work. Let's not do any of these podcast episodes.
And I'm very proud of myself for sticking to those boundaries.
I'm
in
proud of you.
spite of all your pushing.
Yeah, I have to say I'm proud of you because I can be quite forthright, but you kind of put your foot down. So maternity leave, and then this year is almost 1 year now. Going back to work, being a full-time sort of working mom. When you think about being a leader, going back to work, what is one word that kind of describes this year, those two experiences?
I can't do one word though. Please permit me. I think I would say exciting, exhausting, empowering, and I don't know how to use this word, but efficiency.
Exciting, exhausting, empowering, efficiency.
Yeah. Those are my words.
I mean, this episode title is around winning at home and at work. Break those words down for us. Why you chose those words?
So exciting, right? It's a new phase of life for me, a new season, a season that has brought lots of joy for us, lots of work, but welcomed work.
Yes, yes.
So it's an exciting phase. I can't lie about that. It's also exhausting. We didn't know what was coming to hit us. So that, and then I think, like you said, going back to work and new phase of life, come back home. Typically, you come back home and then rest or just connect, eat, watch series. Can't quite do that anymore.
Oh.
Or actually, stay at work till really, really late because there's lots to do. Now we have to come back home, sort out little man, came up from nursery,
Shouting, mum, mum.
feed him, shower him, put him to bed, and then go back to work. So there's all of that reorganizing that I've had to get to grips with. I'll now take on or implement.
Yes.
So that's what's been exhausting. I said exciting, exhausting, empowering in that it's like, wow, okay, I can do this.
Yes.
Like I just need to fix up, be more organized, plan. Like you said, if I had my son or my first child at a stage in my life where I'm more senior, so that comes with different things as well, right? It comes with the fact that I can organize my calendar. I can move things, shift things so that I can drop him at nursery, shift things so I can come back early enough to pick him up. But it also means that I can't take days off. So when I shift things, I have to get the work done.
This is it, right? So the work still has to be done.
Exactly, I own it now.
I mean, yesterday you were working till 2 a.m.
Right?
Because I think there's those elements where we can say it's happening, but it's understanding the sacrifice, because you're a person who you want to succeed at home, but you certainly have a lot of ambition, aspirations of what you want to do in the marketplace. So hearing that 2 a.m. element, I think is important.
True.
Yeah.
True. And then efficiency is, and this I got advice from people at work and just people generally who have kids and are working.
Yes.
Was you can't, you know how you be at work and you can just chit chat. I still chit chat, but you're chit chatting knowing that by 4:30, Che is abroad. So if you don't leave by 5 at the latest, then you have to sort out who's going to pick your son up. You can't just chill.
This is it. Yes.
So you are more efficient about your time, your calendar, how you do things. I'm constantly looking at my calendar. Okay, do I need to move this from here?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the efficiency point comes in.
Yes.
You need that in order to be effective. See how I just did ease.
Rubbing
off on me.
I think you are advised. We're helping each other. One of the things that I like in what you just said about 4:30 and I need to leave at a particular time is because when we talk about winning at home and at work, as leaders, there's also the context of the country that you are in. Like we are in the West here in the UK. If you were in, let's say, West Africa, if you were in Nigeria, where we are from, there's not worrying about that because there's a lot of support about people picking your children home and stuff like that. So I think there's also the context of where you are being a leader, trying to juggle all these things.
Yes, our context is, and it comes with its own pros and cons, but
Yeah.
it's definitely that my sister was telling me about. She was, I don't know if it was a podcast she was listening to, but someone she was listening to who said she spent 7 weeks in the US with her children, and this time around her nanny didn't go with them, and she said after 7 weeks she was like, man, you guys in the abroad, I realized that the motherhood I'm doing in Nigeria is motherhood light.
Motherhood life.
Because after 7 weeks with her kids with no help at all,
I like
she was just
it.
like, man, this is a different life. So yeah.
It's a really different life. And, you know, it's one of the things we discuss, right? Where when you are talking about being a leader and being empathetic for people, presumably there's a level of empathy you now have for working moms in any context, but certainly in the context that you are in, that you probably didn't have when you were leading mothers when you didn't have a child.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah. Even like for my sisters, like the things that they went through, and it's now that I'm like, it makes sense. That's why you were always tired. That's why you were snapping. There was one time that my sister would be with us, and then her kids are running around. Maybe they are tired and their schedule has moved. So they usually go to bed at maybe 7 or 8, and then it's 9 and they're already jumping. She would just bundle them and say, I'm leaving, and just go. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Like, relax.
Now I get it.
To be honest with you, I think that the bit about empathy, I think, is a key one. Well, let's talk about the tension, right? Because the whole idea of winning at home and at work, there are clear tensions, there are clear competing demands, right? What are some of those tensions for you?
So when I first went back to work and people were like, oh, how are you feeling? I used to say, I feel like I only have time for work and my son. There's no time for myself. And people will say, and I don't think it's coming back, which I don't know whether it's true or not. But the key thing was I didn't have time for you.
Yeah, I felt that was a hard reality. I remember just yesterday we were talking and I said, Vona, I need you. You know, like and we're doing this live, but there's a kind of need I have as a husband, and I thought I'm not getting it, but I'm going to voice it, and we're going to have to figure this out in a different way, because it's not like you're not wanting to give that which I need. It's just the reality of our life.
So there's definitely that. Funny enough, I was speaking to one of senior leaders that I connect with regularly, and he was saying that tension is always going to be there, and so when you know about it, you learn to manage it. And he said, well, for now it's your husband. You will get to a point where you guys now find your rhythm and you have time for him. But he said you go to a different phase in your work.
Yes,
you might start traveling a bit more. You then need to adjust. And for him, he was saying, so he's at a stage where his daughters are in their 20s, so it's no longer about children, but he now has aging parents and aunties and uncles that he was very close to, who are saying, who he knows that actually I should call them every Sunday, because this auntie of mine looks forward to my call every Sunday. If I don't, it's a big part of her life.
Right.
So those competing demands from his perspective was, his advice to me was, it would always be there. It's up to you to continue to manage them as long as you're aware of them.
Yes. So how do you overcome this tensions? Like, because if they're always going to be there, and I don't think it is far-fetched that you can win at home and at work. I talk about what that actually looks like. But how do you overcome the tensions?
So, for example, communicating, right? So,
okay,
I was saying at work, I only have time for work and for my son. It didn't quite occur to me then that actually, I was saying I didn't have time for myself. But at that point, it didn't quite occur to me that actually, that means you also don't have time for your husband. It didn't. I was just saying, so there's no time for me anymore. But as life continues to happen and you are very vocal, you communicate. And so you were saying, actually, Vona, what's going on? We need to talk. I need to talk.
A closed mouth doesn't get fed.
True.
Right?
True.
Now, we can look at that literally in terms of eating food, but in any phase of life, if you don't voice what you need, it's not going to be met.
Yeah, you're right. So you communicating then now made me aware of it.
Fair enough.
And then, because of also the type of person that you are, you were making sure that, okay, what are we going to do? So you're like, when we're working from home, both together, you're like, let's go for a walk. So we're now making time for each other. It's lunchtime, I'm going for a 20 minutes walk. Are you going to come? I'll come. Sometimes even when you didn't ask me, I'm like, can I come? Remember one time I came for the work, I just annoyed you on that work because I brought up something that was
became a disaster. I was like, why? So I stopped inviting you for my work.
I know you did.
But I didn't stop, but I just made a mental note that I'm going to do this work alone because it's meant to be a breath of fresh air, not to talk about
just
life
one
stuff.
time. But yeah, so we started doing that, the whole work thing, and then there's sometimes when I'm like, so where I work now, I have to be in the office 3 times a week. I'm very disciplined about that, but there's sometimes I'm like, actually I want to go in 4 times.
Yes.
There's sometimes I want to go in 5 times, and which is like, actually this 5th day, do you really need to go in?
Yes.
You can get all the work you need to get home from home. You can do it from home. You can also be more efficient. We can go for a walk at lunchtime. Do you understand? So you can do other things in the house.
Yes.
And then you feel more relaxed. So why are you really going in? So the fact that we're having those conversations, you're causing me to stop and think. You travel a lot as well.
This is true.
So having to deal with that as well. One other thing that helps us, I think, with home is the planning, looking at our calendar in advance.
Yes.
So when are you traveling? When are you working really early? Where it means that I have to do drop-offs.
Yes.
Or when you have late meetings and I have to do. So all of that organization is being, and actually, I'm a very free flow, flexible person. You are the Mr. Structure.
I wanted to talk about. I'm glad you brought it up. I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, let's talk.
What impact has all of this had on you being more organized and structured? Because your ability to work under pressure, right? I remember right back from this is 20 plus years ago. Uni, exams or an assignment. Even when we did a couple of similar courses, a week to the deadline, you're like, okay, game on. Sometimes days 2, and you get it done. Even if you pull all-nighters, I have been working at it little by little over the course of a month. So the reality now of you needing to be more structured or efficient, like, are you? What's happening? How are you changing?
I guess life has forced me to be a bit more structured and organized. I'm still very much flexible. So, for example, I push boundaries.
You do. You do.
I think it was some point this week.
To my frustration sometimes.
At some point this week, we spoke. I said I'll be home by 5:45. And then one more thing came up at work. I don't think I got home till like 7.
Yes.
But I knew you were home. So I knew that there was a...
But we had an agreement.
Also, yeah, I know. So
the agreement was I will pick him up earlier and lose about an hour and a bit of work because you were going to come up. And then you decided to just not.
No. So there was work and I kept pushing. But because I knew that I had that when you jump and there's something, that buffer, it's not even necessarily a buffer, something that will catch.
Safety, yeah.
Safety net, yeah. I had a safety net where his father is at home, we'll pick him up, we'll be with him. I also do that with, like, even when you've traveled, I'm like, okay, at least I know my sisters live around. Worst case scenario, between my sisters and my brothers, somebody can pick him up. So I'm now structured, but still operating in that fluidness.
Yes.
In a structured way.
Yes.
So it allows me to still be myself, but also realize that actually, even though they can pick him up, he also has a structure. It's better for him to come home, do all the things he needs to, but then I also have structure, support, and network. So it's
I think that there are 2 things that come to mind. One is something that you say a lot, which I'm learning to do both for myself, to you, and people, which is you said to me, which like, give me grace, right? And I think that is I can be hard on myself, and if I can be hard on myself, then surely I have no problem being hard on other people, right? So that's some self-awareness there. But I think giving ourselves grace is a key element when it comes to juggling all this stuff, right? Because if I think about, I did it very well now, which is why I use that example where you came home at 7. Ordinarily, back in the day, that would have really upset me,
course, yeah.
and it would have been a fight in the house and all that kind of stuff. But it was fine. We kind of just joked about it and we moved on. That was an example of giving grace. A few days before, I didn't give grace. So I had work late, and so somebody else picked him up.
Yeah.
And I went to their house to pick him up. Everything was fine. He came to meet us there, and it was like, he was really crying. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to play with his cousins. And I was like, well, okay, I have to go. And you said, leave him, I'll bring him, and we'll be back home by this time, because we had planned something as a family. And then you came home, and again, an hour and a half after.
Seems to be a trend.
And then at that one, I was upset. Now, I didn't react to you. I just went to bed early, right?
You did.
But-
Just left us, went to sleep. Didn't even, yeah.
Right, so I think obviously those are two examples, but I think that giving grace is a key thing to yourself, to people, and asking for the help that you need. I think it's probably another key way when it comes to dealing with these struggles.
Definitely. Even funny enough that you say I'm the opposite, so I give grace freely to everyone but myself. I'm so hard on myself, but I definitely give grace. So yeah. So my own learning is to be kinder to myself. Yeah.
Can you give too much grace though?
To myself.
To yourself,
Yeah. If every day you're like, oh, I need to wake up and pray, but because you're staying up late working, and then by the time you finish working, you're like, let me just watch one episode of Netflix to relax, and that that's the reason why you are not waking up to pray. You have to decide at some point, and it's a real example, what is important to you, right? That's what I mean. What is your priority? The fact that you're like, oh yeah, you're tired, you're unwinding, you deserve it. Yes, that's giving yourself grace. But is this other thing that you are the opportunity cost of not praying? Is that more important? You understand? You have to weigh that up. So yeah, that's definitely giving yourself too much grace.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, appreciating the season that you're in. Yes, the season of rest and all of that.
So, you like to be real. Let's go behind the scenes. What are some of the real struggles that, when it comes to trying to, being at home and at work, what are some of the real struggles that people don't see? And it could be ours, it could be yours, it could be mine, it could be stories you've heard other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are some of the real struggles people don't see for us?
So one is this feeling of being constantly tired. I am trying to deal with that with exercise, food choices, and all of that. There's also this point around when I said that I didn't have time for you, and because of the way we're set up, our relationship, our friendship, what it is that you need, I find that when it feels like we haven't spent time together, I haven't given you time, you start to get angsty. From being angsty, you become upset, then you become very critical. So it then changes the atmosphere in the house. It's like, oh, you haven't done this, you didn't buy it, there's no music, there's no milk in the house, or you are milk and juice. I don't know what you're with milk and juices. I remember there was one point, this is earlier when we first got married, you'd be like, oh, there's no milk, and then you'll be upset, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, I need to do shopping. At one point I was like, babes, this house is not a hotel. Sometimes we'll run out of things, and that's okay. So you've kind of chilled since then, but still,
I've done a lot more.
You definitely always want juice and milk in the house,
Yeah,
and so you start to
need to be around.
Yeah, so
and for
favorite.
anybody who is listening and they're thinking like, why can't you buy the milk? We have division of roles in this house, and there are things that I need to sort and things my wife needs to sort out.
Yeah. That.
I mean, that's a different episode.
So that's the thing. There's the things that pile up, right? Like laundry. You're good with that. So there's the tiredness, there's the exhaustion, there is not sticking to what was agreed, like you said, and the impact it has on you or me. Do you understand? As much as you say give grace, it had an impact on you. Whatever it is we were planning that weekend, you were looking forward to it. Not that weekend, the day that I came home and I went there half late, you were looking forward to something. It's disappointing that didn't happen. There's finances as well. You're like, sometimes because one is so tired, I'm more likely to take luxuries with, I'll just take a cab from the station. There's my well-being as well. Like when I'm tired, I'm supposed to be being better with my lifestyle and what I'm eating, reducing sugar, reducing carbs. When I get so tired, especially when you now are upset with me, I'll just go and get the one thing that I said I wasn't going to eat. And I would have been doing so well the whole day.
Yes.
And then at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, because you just said something, I'm like, I'm going to go and eat. What did I eat that day? Biscuits
you
or
ate
something?
Some really sweet shortbread.
I finished the whole pack.
Loaded.
And then Richard was like, but you said, I'm like, leave me. Yeah. I'm tired, please. I need my shortbread. And then you're like, okay. So so those things as well, right? And obviously, it's hopefully they should be one-offs, but those things are like,
they're real struggles.
These are real struggles, right? Because after doing that, they will not say, babes, I really need to become fitter. My son is so active. I need to be fitter. I need to eat well. I need to eat less sugar. But in that season of tenseness, and all of that goes out of my head.
Yes.
There's what else are real struggles? There's work. There's the pressures of work, right? Like, you want to deliver, you want to be this person there is people looking up to you. You want things, and it can feel like you're constantly juggling things sometimes. You don't want to drop any balls.
You don't want to drop any balls. This year, and this year in particular, has been a really good year for you, right? You were awarded 40 under 40 for B1 Black Women in Asset Management. That's a bit of a global award. You became the chair of various employees resource group in your organization. You've held some great panels. You've been named on Business Day. It's a notable paper from where we come, and you were one of the women that was identified, highlighted, and a section was done on you. So you are winning at work this year, definitely, and you've been winning at work. So what would you say are a couple of things that help you keep winning at work in spite of the demanding home side as well?
Honestly, and this not even been trying to be spiritually, definitely God.
Absolutely.
I'm always like, God, help me. I need you to empower me to be all that you created me to be. When I'm afraid, when I'm nervous, I keep praying that to myself. I also know that God has decided to favor me. There's also what's that thing? The scripture, I am meant to be light. I'm meant to shine.
You're meant to shine
so
your light.
Brightly.
Shine your light. You are the light of this world. Shine your light.
Yes, and I remember doing coaching once, and I was going to say another thing is coaching, but I get there, and they're saying, actually, the shining, reason, like, depending on personalities, my personality is I want to hide. I'm just like, too much spotlight. I'm not really interested. But the shining is not really about me. It's for the glory of God. And so when you focus on yourself, then you're like, oh, I don't want to shine. But when you realize that actually you're meant to draw men to God, it's not about you. It's who He created you to be. Light of the world, not light of your home. Not light of your tiny ministry that you are doing. Of the world. And so I say those things to myself, and I say it and I do it afraid. So I think that definitely helps me.
I think that's a key one when you say do it afraid, because I think that's also another sort of behind the scenes people don't see, right? The bits where you have an opportunity to do something, to step up, that's something you do well. You step up and you do it, and you do it with the fear, because many times people are waiting for the feelings of I can, but that never really comes sometimes. Is when you do it, you now get, actually I did that. Could I learn from it and do things differently? Yes. So I think that's a key one. And when you talk about it's not just about you and it's for the glory of God, yes, your why comes into this as well, right? Which is to be the representation you didn't have or don't have. And that is a lot more representation of Black women in senior roles. But that's something, because this week you actually said, hey, I wanted to be the representation and be more of the representation. But man, the demand from people wanting to be mentored, or you're speaking to somebody and they're crying and figuring out, how do I go through this phase? It's even that which you want to achieve, you achieve it, but it never stops, right? There's always more of a request and more of an ask.
Yeah, definitely. Coaching as well, I was going to say.
Yes.
Yeah, anytime anybody asks me about coaching and about, okay, I'm in a transition, what do? I found that coaching has always helped me in transitions in my life. I remember when I was at JLO, and it was my manager who said, actually, Vona, I think you need coaching. And after the end of that coaching program, I looked at the goals that I set at the beginning. I was like, wow, unintentionally, I had achieved the goals that I set at the beginning of the coaching. So there's something about setting your goals and then having some way that you talk through it with, and then you have a plan, and then there's something about the process of coaching. I don't know how to define it, but it's definitely helped me. I had maternity coaching as well. I then use you as a informal coach as well, so it definitely helps me.
It's certainly a key one, and there's one thing I would highlight when it comes to, you don't know why coaching, the process. I think there are three things. There's countless research is showing. One is just the simple act of writing the goal down. Right? That simple act makes a huge difference. The second thing is we are a lot more likely to do what we commit to doing. And embedded in that writing a goal down is then you have to write the action steps. So whether it's a coach asking you, are you doing it for yourself? It's like, so how are you going to get this done? And that conversation begins to help you see, I say I want to do this. There's the why. Do you really want to do it? These are the actions you say you're going to take. What is going to stop those actions? But I think the game changer for coaching, which people can get by themselves without necessarily working with a coach, is you have to build in some form of accountability. If there isn't accountability, you are not going to get it done. period. And so building some form of accountability, whether it's with a friend or with a professional coach, makes a big difference. Absolutely. Let's finish with this, guilt. You know, I remember there was that time when I was flying again, and I was literally in the air. Plane was maybe not taking off more than 30 minutes, and I was just feeling so guilty about traveling again and doing work. And I remember I text you on the plane knowing you won't get it until I land. But there's this guilt we have of trying to win at work, you know, and then, you know, we're at home. There's also the guilt of when you're trying to lean in at home and maybe work. So do you feel guilty, and how do you deal with that?
How do I deal with it? So before I answer how I deal with it, I like it when you feel guilty.
You like it?
Yes. Because you always end up sending me a nice text message. Sometimes it can be like, Vona, we haven't done this, we haven't spent time together. But you end up sending me a message, or I miss you, I love you, and then you end up coming home with a present for me. So as you travel this week, feel guilty and come back with a nice present for me. But
and I'm going to a good place where there's nice presents.
So how do I handle guilt? Funny enough, yeah. With my son, I felt guilty when he first started nursery, and that's because he was crying every single day we dropped him. And then when we picked him up, he would run to us crying. He wouldn't have been crying during the day, but as soon as he sees us, it's almost like, oh my God, where have you been? And then he runs to us crying. And I was just like, man, is he really enjoying being here? What's going on? Why is he crying? Is he not settling? And I remember saying to my sister, maybe nursery is not for him. And she said, so what's your alternative? Because you're going to work. And I was like, having somebody in the house is not an alternative, because I didn't want him to be alone with one person, because we're in and out. She was like, so what's your alternative? And she was like, my sisters all have kids and they've gone through this with me. So having that helped me, because they helped me push through that process. And I'm happy that we did, because now he absolutely loves it. He's
absolutely loving it. And we see the benefit of, his growth with other kids and all that stuff,
So I no longer feel guilty about him being in nursery. The only anytime I feel guilty is if I pick him up late and he's the only one left there, and I'm like, I've become this mom. Now, please try and pick him up earlier, so he's not the last person at nursery. So that's the only time I feel when it concerns him. And I say that because I'm able to flex. There's some times when, if I don't have a morning meeting and I'm working from home, I might drop him a little bit later so I can just chill and hang out with him. I find ways to make up for the fact that he's in nursery 5 days a week, 8 to 6. There are 2 people at work actually that make me feel guilty, but I always laugh it up because I don't feel guilty. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe you chucked him into nursery. I'm like, what should I have done with it? One is actually Nigerian and one is Italian, and he's like, you put that boy in nursery. And the Nigerian guy is like, oh my God, they don't take care of them. I'm like, no, my son's nursery, they take care of him.
Very well.
Do you understand?
And they give him
you
much better
one woman that
meals
is his
during
nursery
the
mommy.
day.
Do you understand? So I don't feel guilty in that regard, but I flex and find ways to spend the time that I need with him. So in that regard, what I felt guilty about, what I did feel guilty about was the time with you. You see what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, when you highlighted, actually, I got you. Yes, I don't have that. And even when I realized it, I was like, but I don't have anything to give. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
After the day at work, then is mom.
Beautiful sound. But to come in there, and this is some reflection. There's something I heard someone say a while ago, which is you can't get everything. It's unhealthy to want to get everything you need from your spouse in terms of support. Now, I think one of the things I've started to do, and I've not solutionized it yet, but I found myself recently beginning to think, like, what support do you need? What are you going to get from Vona, and what support do you need that you're going to get elsewhere? And that is getting it elsewhere in a healthy way, right? In the context of, it could be my best friend, it could be my sister. It's not getting it elsewhere in a negative way, and there are many ways you can do that. So I do think that for spouses, or just relationships generally, is when the dynamics of a relationship changes of necessity, is beginning to think that support you still need to get. You just have to get it differently, right? You have to just get it differently. And I haven't figured out fully yet, but it's something I've been thinking about recently.
Yeah, and I've just thought about a very, very recent example. So we had a very difficult conversation with a very emotionally challenging and draining, not draining, but difficult conversation with people that we love. And when we came back home, I think in the car we were we were talking. I was talking. You weren't talking. And then when we came back home, my sisters had happened to be in the house.
Yes.
And I was downstairs doing something, and I came up, and you were talking to them, and I was just, it was them, but I could have been like, you didn't talk to me in the car, but you are able to. But they asked you, whereas in the car I was talking. I didn't give you space to talk. Yeah,
which is usually the opposite, right?
I know, right?
So I was like, I'm learning, I'm growing.
But they gave you the space, and you're like, oh, what's going on? And then you were talking to them, and I was like, that's okay. So sometimes I come in and it's and you're talking to your best friend. That's okay. At times you're talking to your sister, and I'm like, that's okay. Do you see what I mean? Because I understand that these are solid people in your life that are important to you.
Absolutely.
And it's not that you are not talking to me because you're like, oh, you don't understand. It's just how life is. And then when we do find time, we then speak about it. So yeah, I use that example to say, yes, there are times that things will shift.
Yes.
And as long as you're understanding and we understand why it's happening, then that's okay, right?
It is. It absolutely is. And one of the things I would say as we wrap it up for today is in relation to guilt. I think there is this word presence, right? So one of the things I'm learning now is if I'm here with wife, son, for that half an hour or 1 hour, I'm going to put my phone away and be fully present here and squeeze all the juice I can from that moment. I was just thinking recently, I was with him. He was happy watching, a show on TV. I was there with him. He actually came to sit on me because he wanted to be with me. And he was watching it, and I was on my phone watching something else. And I just thought to myself, what are you doing? I put my phone off. I put the TV off, and I began to play with him. And there were toys, and we decided to play. And obviously, he wants to do horsey and kind of ride on my back. And so for me, I think one of the ways we shouldn't feel guilty, because the actual word guilt is that you've committed some sort of crime. Like you've done something wrong. Like me going to work so that we can provide the life that we need for each other and for him and our family. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. So we shouldn't actually feel guilty. But it's just, if you're at work. If you're at home, be at home. And in that space, do it.
Present, yeah.
And then we also try this thing where we ring fence the time, right? So there's some rituals we have of when we want family time or when we want to go and have dinner and stuff like that, or brunch on a Saturday. So I think there's some key things that we can also do in that regard. What is your final sort of word to people around winning at home and at work?
It's a dance.
Beautiful.
Find your rhythm.
I like it. It really is a dance. Find your rhythm. And I would also say this, whether you are married or not, because you don't have to be married to have this tension and demands. The dance is, you can dance with someone, but you can also dance alone, right? And oftentimes you can head into we were on a cruise recently, and you can head into a party and find a dance partner, you know what I mean? And dance for that time together. But I like it. It's a dance. Find your rhythm. This has been a great one.
I know.
It's so good to have you back. I feel there's a different energy. There's a different kind of feeling to this session. So we're going to have to make this regular, right?
I'm ready for you.
You're ready for me? Awesome stuff. Thank you for enjoying this session with us. Let us know how you found it. Comment, share this with somebody else, and ask your questions about this that you want us to help you answer when we do episodes together. Do put a thumbs up rating on this podcast as well. Until the next time, stay blessed.